Hello, everyone. My name is Barsha Suresh. I'm a researcher and program officer at Foundations of Success, the FOS that you see here. And on behalf of the CMP Behavior Change Working Group, I'm so thrilled to welcome you all to our first webinar in the series, Behavior Change webinar series. We're so excited that so many of you can be here with us today, despite the different time zones and I'm sure very busy schedules. So we're really, really excited and really appreciate you taking the time out. The work that we're going to be talking to you all about today has been led and funded by the Conservation Measures Partnership with support from the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation. CMP, as you can see all the different logos here, is a consortium of nonprofits, government agencies, and private businesses that are working together to design, manage, and measure conservation and climate action. Guided by the conservation standards, these members collaborate to share knowledge, adopt best practices, and avoid ineffective approaches, ultimately enhancing conservation efficiency and innovation around the world. Through collaboration, members contribute to a shared pool of expertise, which you will be hearing more about today. These lovely faces on the screen you see here are the core working group that have been working together for the past 1.5 years on this project. You see members from RARE, FOS, and many other CMP organizations. And throughout different phases of the work we've been doing, we've had multiple members from other CMP organizations and the wider conservation community really supporting us to build out all the products and resources that we've been able to work on. And speaking of products and resources, what we've been working on primarily has been developing guidance for applying behavior change principles to adaptive management. So the first task we really set out on was updating guidance to be included in the latest 5.0 version of the conservation standards to help make behavior change more explicit. And if you're wondering what is the conservation standards, they are a widely adopted set of principles and practices that really bring together common concepts, approaches, and most importantly, terminology for conservation professionals to design, manage, and monitor their projects. The next thing we set out to do was build a tool, which ended up being this lovely website, to lay out all of the theory, guidance, and examples to really help practitioners find what they're looking for, whether it's just a generic building block to add to your project or a specific example to help you understand how to use a particular principle. You'll find it all on the website. And the last thing we worked on was working with 12 wonderful teams around the world to write out case studies. You'll be hearing more about that and from 4 of them today. And like I said, this is the first webinar in a series of 3. So please be sure to sign up for the other 2. They're coming up soon, one in May and one in June. We'll be sharing links to all that I'm mentioning in the chat, so you'll have access to sign up and learn more about everything. As for the agenda for today, we'll be kickstarting with an introduction to some of the basic behavior change principles and levers. If you're already familiar, think of this as a refresher. And then we'll jump into hearing from the 4 teams who will be sharing how they have used behavior change in their work and what results they've found. And then finally, we'll hold some time for discussion to really get into the questions that you all have. And speaking of how to document your questions when you don't have access to the chat, we have set up this wonderful slide deck that you will have the link to any second now. And if you get into that slide deck, which you all should have access to, you will see that there are sections set up where you can add your name and your question for the specific speaker you want to ask the question to. So throughout this session, at any point in time when you have a question, just get into the slide deck and feel free to add your question. And we will be looking through them throughout the session so that we can get the discussion started with themes that are emerging. I can't promise that we'll get to all of the questions that you have, but we're going to try our best to kind of answer as many as we can in Umbrella so everyone can get all their questions clarified. All right. With that, I'm going to pass it to my lovely colleague, Maria Dabrowski, to walk us through the introduction.
Hello, everybody. Let me share my screen quickly. Thumbs up that you can all see. Yes, thumbs up. Okay, wonderful. Hello. Good morning, good evening, good night, good whatever time it is where you are. We're so happy that you're here, all 154 of you. So many people signed up, and that's fantastic. And we're just super excited to learn with you and talk with you all today. So I'm going to share a little bit just to set up, kind of frame the what the speakers are going to be talking about today, and give a little bit more context about behavior change. I'm from RARE. I'm the Senior Outreach Associate in RARE's Global Solutions team, and I love behavioral science. So let me share something that I'm sure the majority of you know, right? Virtually every conservation, sustainability, environmental initiative has one thing in common, and that thing is, drumroll, wait, behavior, specifically human behavior. And we use behavior in a variety of different ways in our day-to-day conversation, but I want to be really explicit about what we mean by behavior in this context. And so we know that we have beliefs, right? For example, recycling is important. It's something we know or accept to be true. We have attitudes. This is where we add kind of a value, right? I think recycling is good. I think using single-use plastic is bad, right? So these are beliefs, attitudes. We have intentions. I plan to recycle. I intend to recycle. We all know, I think, that intentions don't always lead to action. I intended to go for a walk this morning. I did not go for a walk this morning. And then, of course, everything is existing within a particular context, right? It's possible that you want to recycle, but you don't have recycling bins in your city. So the context does influence our behavior. And then the behavior, which is our actual actions, what we do or what we do not do. So when we say behavior, we mean action. This also may look familiar to a lot of you, especially if you use the conservation standards. But to sort of organize ourselves, right, we create these theories of change or these results chains. And it's our way of understanding how the program activities influence intermediate or shorter term results, which influence longer term results like threat reduction outcome, ultimately then having desired positive social and environmental outcomes. The intermediate results and the threat reduction outcome are usually behaviors, right? What somebody is doing, or maybe equally as important, what somebody is not doing, that's a pro-environmental behavior. But the question is, how do we get from those program activities to those intermediate results in a way that is durable, so lasting, ethical, which is critical, and impactful at the same time? What's going on between the program activities and the actual behavior change? Again, this is not going to be anything mind-blowing in this slide. We exist with not in a vacuum, but within a broader context, community, culture, society. And so we're influenced by things like our social environments, right? Our sociocultural context, what we think people want us to do, what we think people should be doing. We're also influenced by behavioral science, different aspects of behavioral science, which we're going to get much more into today. And the environmental context. Maybe we're in a place with a lot of storms that influence our overall behavior. And then we have our psychological state. This is what we believe to be true. This is what we see. This is what we perceive. This is what's going on inside of us, which is ultimately really critical for behavior. This is what motivates us. These are the barriers that surround us from actually acting. And so when we think about how we can maybe impact, influence, again, I say all of this very, very ethically, people's behaviors, we have what we call the levers of behavior change. So we have a lot of discussions and trainings and more content about this at RARE. And so what I'm going to be doing is a very quick overview, a deep dive of these 6 behavioral levers. What I can say is traditionally,
Hey,
uh, con-
Maria,
yeah,
super sorry to cut you off there. I
no,
think your slides are a little blurry looking. I'm not sure if it's the internet, if you want to maybe just stop and reshare, just
yeah,
so
let
folks
me,
can read. Yeah.
yeah, I don't want our behavioral levers to be blurry. Let me try again. How long have they been blurry for? Do I need to go back?
Since the psychosocial state slide.
Since the psychosocial state slide.
That looks great.
Now it's better?
Yeah,
Okay,
all
most
the thumbs
excellent.
up. Yes, thank you.
No, don't be sorry. So since this slide or since which slide?
It's from the behavioral science and context slide.
This side.
Yeah.
Okay. In summary, this slide is just saying that we don't live in a vacuum, right? This is hopefully what I said explained the slide well enough. And so again, I'm going to just briefly go over these levers, and these are the things that can kind of influence behavior to happen or to not happen. And so historically, we've used information, right? We've done information campaigns. We have rules and regulations, laws that guide us about what we should do or shouldn't do. And we have material incentives. But I think many of us within this field, whether you're starting or seasoned, know that these things don't always work, right? You can provide information, but that's not necessarily going to lead to change. You can have rules and regulations. People do not always follow them for a variety of reasons. And material incentives can work, but when the material incentive is gone, does the behavior continue? Not always. And so those can be effective levers, certainly. And we have three additional levers that are what the literature shows are really critical in motivating behavior change. We have social influences, so that's social norms, what people expect of us, what we expect of other people. Emotional appeals. Think about pride. Think about wanting to do good for future generations as a really strong motivating factor. We have choice architecture. We're going to talk about that today, so I'm going to go a little bit more in depth in a slide in a second. But these 6 different levers can be utilized in conjunction with one another to motivate positive behavior change or to help to prohibit negative changes. Oh, my goodness. Okay, there we go. Oh, wow. Clearly my internet is not. Is this blurry or are we good?
Looks good.
Excellent. So with those levers, we now have what we call a psychosocial theory of change. So once again, this should all look pretty familiar to those previous slides where we have the program activities, intermediate results, threat reduction outcome, desired social environmental outcomes. What's different is this box that says psychosocial results. And what that is the beliefs, the perceptions, the what people see based on those program activities that then leads to that behavior change, right? So, oh, I believe people around me are using plastic bags. No, not that. I believe people around me are using reusable bags. So therefore, I am going to use reusable bags, right? So maybe this program activity helped make that super clear, so I'm going to do it. What's key here is it doesn't necessarily mean that the person is believing the environmental or sustainability or conservation goal. It's just that they're motivated by these other factors around them based on these levers to do a certain behavior. So what we're talking about today is how choice architecture, which is changing the environment or the context in which a choice is made, can help people actually make a different behavior. Choice architecture, you may have heard of nudges. Choice architecture is more than just nudges. So again, changing the context in which a decision, a behavior is made. Think about it like a GPS, right? It directs you in a certain way, it tells you to go down a certain road, but it's not forcing you to do so. You still have the choice to do whatever behavior you were doing previously or whatever behavior you want to do, but it's guiding you in a certain direction. And so to use choice architecture and why it's beyond nudges, we direct attention to a certain option. We simplify messages and decisions, especially during timely moments, to again encourage someone to make a certain choice. We facilitate planning and goal setting. So in the moment when somebody's going to make a decision, they know what they're going to do. Choice architecture can be a complicated lever to understand, but luckily we have 4 teams who have done a fantastic job of using this lever in their work for a variety of really exciting projects. So we've, as Varsha mentioned, worked with 12 different case study teams, and I'm very, very excited to let those teams discuss what they've done. And so first up, I welcome Robert from the Goodall Institute, and Robert, take it away.
Thank you so much, Maria. Hello, everyone. My name is Robert Mkosamali from the Goodall Institute, and our case studies Tunza Udongo, Tunza Familia, care for the soil, care for the family, preserving riverine forests by putting community needs first. So as you know, this campaign focused on promoting the use of compost among small-scale farmers to improve crop production and improve farming in the riverine areas to save the chimpanzees, but at the same time to ensure that community needs are kept intact so that they are not so much distracted by the destruction of sheep cultivation in the riverine areas. So as you know, the Goodall Institute was established back in 1977. And John saw that it was not possible for conservation to go on without addressing community needs. So in Western Tanzania, sheep cultivation was one among the major drivers to the deforestation that led our team to craft this campaign to ensure that farmers know how to make compost, to be able to use it to ensure that their farms produce, a bountiful harvest to feed families, but at the same time to save the chimpanzees in the wild by limiting shifting cultivation. Next. So the desired target behavior, as I said, is composting. So we learned that farmers would compost, and they were really willing to compost because it's like every time when they do over-cultivation of their lands, the crop production was going very low, and they were not able to feed their own families. So composting became one of the behaviors that we targeted to ensure that every farmer knows how to compost and knows how to make compost and knows how to use it to increase crop production and feed their families and reduce farming in the riverine areas. So the results, as you can see, were phenomenal. We trained 605 farmers, but during after the campaign, 872 farmers were spontaneous compost farmers that that learned compost from their own, their own neighbors who were compost farmers. But 92% of farmers used compost for 3 or more seasons, and 57% of farmers knew people who reduced farming outside the existing farming areas. At the same time, 78% of farmers believed that composting would become a standard agricultural practice in their communities. Next. So about our choice architecture. So we did a number of things to ensure that composting becomes a natural activity among the farmers. One, we ensure that we started the campaign, implementation of the campaign, the pilot and the full campaign during the rain season. And from during that time is when we started training farmers how to use and make compost, and to ensure that they could see the kind of outcomes that compost would produce in their demonstration efforts. But at the same time, we also ensure that we created a farming calendar together with farmers to ensure that they follow the farming calendar and they know exactly when to make the compost and how when to use it in what kind of crops that they were intending to cultivate. But we also provided some tools like farming tools like hose. We gave them some free compost samples, visual tutorials, and they were also able to send us some questions and answers of our radio program to ensure that we answer their questions on time and address challenges that they are facing around that time. So that made composting to become a very simple activity and a natural activity among farmers in the landscape. So as you can see, we have a number of vehicles that we use for, to drive this campaign, like, billboards, radio, but we had demonstration posts that they are close to the farmers for them to learn. Next. So underlying the success of this campaign was putting the community needs first. Right from the baseline, we learned a lot from the community, what kind of needs they had, their motivation, their challenges, their priorities, the values that they had. But again, during the implementation, from the pilot to the full implementation, we engage communities to ensure that we learn a lot from them. They give us feedback and sometimes could observe what was not working and what was working, so that we could address the kind of challenge that was around farmers. Above all, we had a robust evaluation studies that went on, about 4 of them, all the time to learn the practice of composting among farmers, and so that we can correct any challenges that were evolving from the implementation. So we have a book that is coming this summer. So if you need a copy, kindly send us your emails for us to be able to share it with you. So on behalf of Impact by Design and Dr. Lorraine Watkins Consulting Company, I thank you so much for your attention. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Robert. Now I'd like to pass it to Katie from the North London Waste Authority. Let me share my screen.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining the webinar today. I'm Katie Johns, a behavioural scientist at North London Waste Authority. I'm really pleased to be a part of this webinar series and hearing from such inspirational people and organisations. And I'm going to talk to you about our reuse campaign, the Bring It campaign. Next, please. So just an introduction to North London Waste Authority. We're the statutory authority for managing the disposal of waste of 7 North London boroughs, and we serve over 2 million residents. As part of our work, we run programmes of work to reduce consumption and waste. We found out that in North London, plastic accounts for 15% of household waste by weight, with 72% being single-use packaging. So we know that promoting the use of reusables offers an opportunity to reduce plastic waste. So we developed the Bring It campaign, and the behavioural goal was to increase residents' use of reusable cups, bottles, bags and containers for takeaway food, drinks and loose groceries. Next slide, please. So the campaign strategy included a number of behavioural levers, and they included social norms, which we use descriptive norms, so what positive behaviours are already happening, and injunctive norms, so what others disapprove of or approve of. We also used real champions for reuse in the advertising, so we had local residents and businesses photographed and quoted in the assets. We also incorporated choice architecture, so we had timely prompts. The social media ads were going out at early in the morning before people left for work or left their houses. And we had out-of-home advertising on the high streets where we wanted people to use their reusables. We also included information about the environmental consequences of single-use plastics and the benefits of making the switch. And most of the information was hosted on our landing pages. We trialled the campaign in one borough, in Barnet, and we evaluated the campaign, and then we localised the campaign across our other 6 boroughs. We ran 12-week social media campaigns within each of those boroughs and had out-of-home advertising along one main high street. And we also engaged businesses along those high streets. Next slide, please. So the social media campaigns generated 9.3 million impressions. We reached over 4 million residents and had over 50,000 landing page views, and 380 businesses across the boroughs displayed our campaign materials. To measure the impact of the campaign further, we delivered a pre-campaign survey, which helped us understand benchmark for our data, but also enabled us to understand the behaviour and people's attitudes within each borough so that we could localise the campaign in each borough. We then delivered a post-campaign survey. Next slide, please. So the data showed that 1 in 4 North Londoners recalled seeing the campaign. And those who recalled the campaign were significantly more likely to be concerned that plastic packaging might affect their health, believe reducing single-use plastics helps protect the planet for future generations, and believe it's easy to reduce single-use plastic when compared to those who didn't recall seeing the campaign. Next slide, please. There was significant positive differences in reuse behaviour when we were looking at the data. So those who recalled the campaign were significantly more likely to use reusable coffee cups, bags and containers for takeaways, and have used or be willing to use reusable cups, bottles, bags and containers in the future when compared to those who didn't recall seeing the campaign. Next slide. We also asked participants who filled in the survey what their main barriers were for using reusables, and forgetting to bring the cup, bottle or container ranked the highest. The inconvenience of carrying the cup, bottle or container came in second highest, and then there were concerns about leakage or damage to the contents of people's bags. I think notably only 15% of participants identified having to ask someone as a barrier, suggesting that the campaign might have helped normalise asking businesses whether they can refill in their businesses. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, I think the evaluation suggests a positive direction for behaviour change, but despite residents' best intentions, they might forget or find it impractical to carry all of their reusables with them at all times, just in case. So in order to have a significant impact, we require a systems-wide approach, and we need the government to take on certain actions. So we need further bans on single-use plastics. We need to extend single-use plastic taxes and charge consumers for disposable packaging. And we need to mandate that all takeaway businesses provide convenient reuse and return options so that there is another option for consumers or residents when they go out and get a takeaway. I think that is everything from me. And thank you so much for listening. I'd really encourage anybody who is working in this space to reach out. I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Katie. Quadra, are you here and are you able to unmute yourself?
Hey, hi Vasha, I'm here.
Oh,
Can
great.
you hear me?
Awesome. Yeah, I can hear you. Let me share my screen with... All right. Over to you, Quadra.
Hi everybody. My name is Kagembe Kudratuberi. I work for Traffic International East Africa, and I'm based in Arusha, Tanzania. So just to introduce the organization, Traffic mainly focuses on addressing challenges related to wildlife trade. Our work seeks to ensure that any trade in wildlife and wildlife product is legal, sustainable, beneficial to local communities, particularly those marginalized groups, while at the same time safeguarding the environment and biodiversity. We have offices across the globe, Our headquarters are in Cambridge, and our East Africa office, where this particular study was undertaken, is based in Tanzania. We work across more than 7 countries in the region. So for more information about traffic, please visit the website seen in the slide. Next slide, please. So this particular case study is a product of a demand management campaign conducted in Kwakuchinja Wildlife Corridor. What is Kwakuchinja Wildlife Corridor? This corridor is found in northern Tanzania and is an important ecological link connecting Lake Manyara National Park and Tarangire National Park. It also forms part of the migratory route of the famous annual wildebeest migration, where 1 million+ wildebeest move between Tanzania's Serengeti and Kenya's Masai Mara ecosystem. Our study in this corridor revealed a significant demand and active market for illegal wildebeest. And this was done among local communities, posing serious pressures on the local wildlife population. So in response to this threat, Traffic implemented a campaign aimed at reducing illegal hunting and demand for illegal wildebeest. But at the same time, Tanzania had introduced a set of regulations allowing the trade of wildebeest sourced from legal, sustainable, and well-managed sources. So this created an important opportunity to promote this legal supply chain as an alternative, helping to reduce reliance and demand for illegal and unsustainably sourced wildebeest within the corridor. Next slide, please. So generally, our campaign applied all the 6 levels of behavior change, as the campaign was designed to respond to the complex socio-economic structure of the communities and the growing threat to biodiversity in the Kwakuchinja Wildlife Corridor. So we began at household level by engaging women who actually play a key role in deciding what food is prepared for the day. By influencing their choices, we wanted to discourage the need for illegal hunting or purchasing illegally sourced wildebeest, which is often a responsibility of the husband and sometimes the child. Through cooking demonstrations with women, we introduced alternative, nutritious, and appealing dishes that could supplement wildebeest, while at the same time, we equipped women with practical skills that in some cases translated into income-generating opportunities. Our next target was the youth. To address the perception among the youth, we worked with former illegal hunters who shared their lived experiences, highlighting that after years and years of hunting, the wildebeest trade did not provide them with any suitable or meaningful benefit. Their lives never got better. So this helped challenge the belief among many youth that hunting wildlife and involvement in wildebeest trade are a quick path, more income, and a luxurious life. We also built in on existing cultural values in the corridor, particularly within the Maasai community, who actually are among the few tribes in Africa that continue to strongly uphold their cultural values and preserve their traditional way of life. So by working with traditional leaders from this group, we reinforced norms that historically discouraged the Maasai communities from consuming wildebeest excessively. Finally, we amplified these messages through trusted influencers, including health experts and law enforcement officers, using platforms such as radio talk shows, village meetings, and more than 1,000 posters. And actually over 3,000 posters carrying different messages were distributed at critical decision points where wildebeest was available for sale or sometimes for consumption. And this was done across the 14 villages that form part of the Kwakuchinja Wildlife Corridor. Next slide, please. So 1 year after the interventions, the results showed a significant shift in behavior and enforcement outcomes. The evaluation indicated that 99% of the respondents who participated in the survey the Endline survey reported not consuming wild meat, whether legally or illegally sourced, reflecting a significant reduction in the demand for wild meat, actually within the targeted villages. In addition to that, there were also a 50% decrease in the number of seizures and arrests during that time frame, suggesting a corresponding decline in illegal hunting in the corridor. So overall, the campaign reached over 200 people, far exceeding the estimated 70,000 people that live within the wildlife corridor, underscoring the wide coverage and the high and strong community level engagement achieved during this campaign. So that is it. The campaign was very successful, and we aim to replicate this approach in other wild meat hotspots within the country, while also scaling it Kenya, Uganda, and other East African countries where similar threats exist. Thank you so much. More detailed insights will be presented in our case study, which will be published soon, and we would really love to continue the conversation. Please feel free to reach out. We are more than happy to engage with all of you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Cordo. So the last team that we have here today is the Habits of Waste. Unfortunately, due to time zone, they're unable to be here, but we do have an embedded pre-recording video that I'm gonna start playing. Let me know if you're unable to hear it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sheila Moravati. I'm the president and founder of Habits of Waste. Today, we are here to share a little bit of our work from the Cutout Cutlery campaign and how we began it and where we decided to take it. And so we're very proud to share the work we've done. I'm just going to share my screen here so I could share a few things with you all. One of the main reasons why Habits of Waste was born was because we spearheaded the world's first plastic straw and cutlery ban, which was in the city of Malibu. And this was a very historic campaign because it was the first of its kind. And most of the people who live in the city of Malibu understand the plastic pollution crisis based on what they find every day on the beaches. So after we were able to successfully ban single-use plastic straws and cutlery, many people came to me and said, what about all the plastic I get when I order food, order online? And that complaint came so often that I thought there has to be a better solution. So with a background in sociology, I always thought about default settings and how that is a major force for change. And I felt that that was an avenue we could explore. So the mission of Habits of Waste is that we are an environmental advocacy organization, and we're dedicated to initiating systems change so that we could basically shift value systems throughout society and making sure that people apply basic swaps in daily life without really having to think much of it. The goal is that people create and form new habits, and we basically impose those onto everyone with levers like default settings. So in this particular instance with the Cutout Cutlery campaign, we realized that there was a big problem in how many pieces of plastic cutlery are coming in to-go orders, even if people are eating at home or at work. And we also noticed that there is a frustration among the users of these apps because they can't communicate their desire to not have the plastic cutlery. And the apps are just getting restaurants to fulfill orders very quickly and completely, disregard any notes that might be in the order. So basically, we began a three-prong approach to creating this behavior change. First and foremost, it was collective action. And we did this by really getting people to participate in sending in emails to the food delivery applications, asking them to change their default settings so that users only get plastic cutlery upon request, and working directly with the food delivery applications within their sustainability departments. Perhaps it was their engineers, showing them that a simple toggle changes behavior so significantly. When we have 40 billion pieces of plastic cutlery produced to be used once and thrown in the trash, we know that there is a big problem because no one is valuing these plastic cutlery pieces as much as they are harming the environment. So even if they're very inexpensive, it's just something people were willing to throw in the bag. And even though it was costing a significant amount of money when you talk about the numbers. And finally, because of that, we decided we needed policy change to seal all the work we had done. In this case, we decided to go into city council meetings and work with large cities like Los Angeles, who adopted the change and required all restaurants and food delivery applications to provide plastic cutlery only upon request, and no longer as the default. And this change was luckily adopted in 4 states so far and over 168 municipalities. So how did we do this? We obviously know that plastic cutlery is a big problem, and we really took advantage of people's frustration and the bottom line that restaurants have to pay. And this all came to be during COVID, when many people were eating at home. And we also learned that there was like a food psychology study done, and single-use plastics were not preferred. In fact, heavier utensils were preferred. So for that reason, we were able to kind of dig in deeper on that and understand that this is a preference people have. It's costing restaurants a lot of money. It would be a win-win to give plastic cutlery upon request only. So this default setting change was really the target, the focus that we were trying to do, and ultimately to eliminate waste. So choice architecture was the science behind it all, showing people that you just have to add a plus sign or move the toggle if you would like plastic cutlery. That was how the behavior had to change. The food delivery apps that we worked with initially was Uber Eats, then Postmates, and then Grubhub and DoorDash. We realized very quickly that there was a very big monetary savings as well if restaurants would do this. And we were able to really put pressure on these companies through a public email campaign that was a very funny video that we created, and getting everyone on board. And our friends over at BuzzFeed shared this widely to like over 30 million people online, and people were able to take a moment to click an email that we had pre-written for them, and it would go to all of these targets. So this collective action and grassroots style of change making really helped tremendously. And we ended up noticing that default settings are available to many industries to reduce waste and change behavior. There are many scientific studies done. In fact, there was one done after our program that showed that behavior changed by 648%. And that was how many people didn't want the plastic cutlery that they were getting for no reason. So aside from the millions of dollars that were saved, this was a really great resource to learn how much of this effect had on society. And so the best part of this was how much one little button, one little toggle could impact so many different parts of this puzzle. For example, we had about 19,000 emails sent to all these food delivery applications. We were able to save over $65 million in bottom line costs for restaurants. That was from 2022 to 2025. And this is information that we received thanks to Grubhub and Postmates. And we've saved over just under 2.5 billion pieces of plastic cutlery packs from entering the waste stream. So understanding this and realizing how imperative it is to rethink structures that we interact with on a daily basis gives us the tools and the information needed to see where else we can apply this mindset and this default setting. So the best part of it was that we were able to get AB 1276 to pass, which provided single-use plastic foodware and accessories only by request. And this was a wonderful win, because now that stays as part of the future of any apps that open in the future, or restaurants. They have to abide by this. So we're very proud of the work we've done, and we feel that if we could find these low-hanging fruits that change behavior in such a significant way, we really should be able to do much more with this information we have. We really thank you for taking the time to listen to our story. We hope that you reach out and connect with us. Follow us on Instagram at HowChangers, and email us. We'll be happy to chat with any of you. Have a wonderful day.
All right, with that, we're at the end of the presentations. And just as a reminder, these 12 case studies will be public very soon. We'll be doing a launch. You'll all receive a link to where you can find the PDFs. And as you can see, you only heard from 4 of the teams today. So if you sign up for the other 2 webinars, you'll get a chance to hear from the other 8. With that, I'm going to pass it back to my colleague Maria for moderating the question and answer session.
Hello again, everyone. Sorry about the tech difficulties on my end. I'm not entirely sure what's going on, but hopefully you can hear me and see me okay right now. Awesome. So we only have 10 minutes and we have so many good questions, as Varsha mentioned in that PowerPoint. Thank you to everyone who added your questions. And so what I'm proposing is I'm going to ask our 3 panelists who are live a question, 1 or 2 questions, depending on how much time we have. So Katie, Kudra, and Robert, this question is for all 3 of you. I think we often have people curious about what it means to use the levers in conjunction with one another, right? How do we determine what levers need to be used? And so the first question is, how did you determine, right? Beyond just choice architecture, all 3 teams used a variety of levers that you found to be important in actually driving behavior change. And so I'm curious, and Robert, I see you're unmuted, we can start with you, but I'm curious about how the team determined what levers, in addition to choice architecture, would be relevant based on the barriers and motivations of the people with whom you were working.
Thank you, Maria. The use of the lever depended much on the studies that we are doing. They were quite informing us what were the motivations of the farmers, for instance. What were the challenges of the communities? What needs to be adjusted? So, as I said in our campaign, we had 4 evaluations that were trying to inform our campaign, to adjust according to what the community needed. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you. And Robert, I think that that's really critical, right? That when we talk about behavior change campaigns, sometimes there's a perception that it's an organization coming in and kind of deciding. But what you're saying is the way to do the behavior change campaign, right? Which is understanding from the community's perspectives what those barriers are, what those motivations are, what changes need to happen, but changes that are aligned with the community values and their day-to-day experiences. Thank you so much. Katie, was there anything that you would add for yours?
Yeah, so initially I did a deep dive into the existing research, and there was quite a lot of research on plastic avoidance in general. So the literature helped me form a COM-B analysis of the behavior, and to top that up, we also collected local data from residents to really understand the barriers and drivers to single-use plastic avoidance and reuse behaviors. And using the COM-B, I was then able to select the corresponding levers.
And I am just adding into the chat more on the COM-B model for folks who are curious about what that means and what that looks like. Thank you, Katie. I think something that you said that I want to highlight is that you did a deep dive into the existing literature, which is fantastic because so much work has been done in the realm of plastics. And though you realized that it was really important that this literature, we can't just scale behavior change and ignore that there are specific barriers and motivations of the people with whom we're working in whatever area that is. So not only did you do the literature review, but you also then said, okay, but locally, what might be different contextually, socioculturally with this group of people that we're working with. So that's fantastic. Kudra, is there anything that you would add for how you all chose to use certain levers?
Yeah, thanks, Maria. I think aside from the initial baseline study that kind of provided us with the understanding of the target groups, so I would say we prefer to use all the 6 levers because of the nature of the target group within the community. So each lever targeted a different part of the whole community because the supply chain was very expansive. So radio talk shows kind of reached everybody within the community that could be exposed to the consumption of wild meat. Cookery demonstrations were targeting the women who kind of influence what to eat today and what not to eat. Poachers kind of tell the stories to the youth and those who are the youth who really want income and need success. So our levels was chosen based on that aspect. Yeah, I could end there for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Kudra. Yeah, and one thing I'll just highlight from that is that you all did a fantastic job in your work, really understanding that the combination of levers or the specific levers used were different or would be more beneficial depending on that actor behavior pair, right? Depending on who was doing what or who was not doing what. And so the real intentional choice of using all six levers, which all the levers, that's a lot of levers, but really being intentional about with whom you were with which components of the project you are using which levers, I think is really critical. Sometimes people are really excited to use all the levers, but they're not always relevant, right? It's a deep understanding of the people with whom you're working with, I'm going to say for the millionth time, their motivations and their barriers, and that's really critical. We have 4 minutes left, and I'm going to try and sneak in one last question for you all. We will end right on the hour. I'm curious if you can talk. I saw some questions about time frame. And so behavior change, we know, takes a lot of time. And so I'm curious if you can all comment on the time frame overall of the campaign. So perhaps not including the literature because that can take its own time, but the actual campaign, and then how long after you measured results for. So that kind of time span. Robert, we'll go in the same order. We'll start with you.
Yeah, thank you. We started designing our campaign back in 2019 by doing the baseline study, analyzing the data, and designing the whole campaign. Then we moved to a pilot phase whereby we tested those results that we got from the baseline. And after the successful testing the ideas, then we launched the full campaign. So in total, I can say this campaign, went for 4 to 5 years. Thank you.
And you did the baseline, the pilot, and the full campaign. Yeah. So you did the
Sure.
full sort of measurement. Yeah. Excellent. Okay. I think
Sure.
that just helps give people kind of a sense of how long these campaigns can take. Katie, what about you?
So yeah, we did a baseline survey. So I mentioned that I piloted it in one borough. So we went through the baseline survey and then we developed the campaign. And then we evaluated that specific campaign in one of our boroughs. And the whole process probably took about a year to develop the campaign and get the data. And then following the evaluation of that campaign launch in one borough, which we ran for 3 months, we then rolled it out across the other 6 boroughs that we manage.
So in total, how much time was that?
The campaigns in the other for the whole period of the campaign,
yeah,
probably ran over a year to a year and a half in the whole time of delivery. And then so that it's not just been left as one campaign, we've relaunched the campaign again just recently across all of our.
Amazing. No, that's fantastic. Kudra?
Yeah, also ours was around one year time frame. But as you mentioned, that behavior change is not a one-time off thing. So we went back oftenly to evaluate if it is still sustained. And so we did that by triangulating the response of the people with the actions that are happening. For example, we went to the law enforcement and tried to see how many seizures are happening, how many arrests are people still going to hand. So by triangulating that, we kind of try to understand whether our actions and our behavior campaign, kind of sustained for a long time. But we are going to keep on going to try and measure whether our success is still impact area.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Kudra. It's a long process, the monitoring and evaluation, as Kudra mentioned. You can see some behavior change, but does that behavior change last? Is it durable? Will you see improvement? Will you see scaling over time? These are all really, really important questions. And monitoring and evaluation, as I'm sure many of you know, is a challenge, and measuring behavior change can also be a challenge. If you are interested in learning more about measuring behavior change with various indicators, please go to behavior.rare.org. We have a lot of resources there. So now that we have probably just a little over a minute left, I would really love to thank our 4 teams today: Traffic, Jane Goodall Institute, North London Waste Authority, and Habits of Waste, for being fantastic. As Varsha mentioned, stay tuned, please, for the case studies that are coming out. These teams have worked so hard on developing really just very digestible and very exciting case studies, including the psychosocial theories of change. And I'll just do one more shout out that we have the 2 webinars upcoming: the emotional appeals webinar on May 20th, 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time, and the social influences on June 3rd, 9 to 10 Eastern Time. These will also be recorded if you can't attend live. Varsha, any final words?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you all for adding so many thoughtful questions to the slide deck. We're going to think through and find a way to share answers back with you. So just know that those didn't just go into the abyss. We're going to definitely be taking a look at them and be sharing answers with you. And once again, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you all. We'll see you at the Emotional Appeals webinar in a couple weeks.